Hello everyone. Today's episode started out as another one of those waiting around kind of affairs, and there will be moments where nothing much happens. But near the end, things will get a bit hairy, when production stops at the heating plant during winter, and makes me realize that we have been working with an overloaded pair of heat exchangers for a couple months. We will also start building the new construction yard, which I found a really convenient place for. The coal side of the steel production was supposed to be the main focus, but in the end, it will be chugging along in the background while we are busy planning the oil extraction setup. Alright then. Let's get going. First things first, since we are importing coal in high volumes right now, we can double dip and add the heating plant into the route plan, so the trucks will first refill that, before moving on to the actual coal storage at the steel mill. This will allow us to remove the heating plant from the distribution office, so the dumpers can concentrate on gravel. Next, I will raise the work distance of the rail construction office. I noticed that it doesn't want to work on those segments at the first junction, because going all the way to the turnaround and then back again, is longer than the default distance. There we go, now it is in range. Speaking of rail, we can unpause a couple more sections of track. We are close to the start of autumn, which means winter is right around the corner. I'd prefer to have the longer segments of this main road paved and ready to go before the first snowfall. We can deal with the small pieces around the town entrance later. And I decided to not bother standardizing the rail layout for the construction yard. I will deal with it on an individual basis. So, let's move it all to the first site. That will centralize the whole construction process. I chose this area. It is fairly close to the town and our industries, and it will allow us to expand further into the mainland, including the oil fields we found a couple episodes ago. Now, copy pasting is not 100% accurate. Building rotation, for example, is a bit iffy. The ghost image shows the default orientation, but one of these construction offices were mirrored before I placed them down. Saving the game and reloading will fix this particular problem. There we go, all back to normal. I will quickly go through the entire setup, and fix certain roads, and replace the cement conveyor belt, that for some reason never manages to carry through this cloning process. During my test games, this was the only issue I could find. I will also build this whole thing in stages. If I released everything I have on it at once, it would dilute the process too much, and it would take too long to have anything built. Doing it piece by piece will allow us to at least have some semblance of progress, even if the overall result is basically the same. Next, I will unpause the coal processing plant and mine. We will only complete the mine in this episode, but the processing plant will be close behind, so we won't have to wait too long to start making coal in the next one. I will also get rid of all these area tags. They were useful for helping me check things off the list while planning, but I'm done with that stage. I will buy a second truck to move steel around. And since we cannot enable spacing on this line for some reason, I will also enable full loading at the steel mill. Maybe having 3 drop-off points in a row confuses the game, and that's why we cannot have spacing on this one. Because I expected this episode to be a waiting around kind, I wanted to see if I could maybe set up a time-lapse of this construction yard being built. But then I remembered that it would result in a periodic frame popping up while the game saves the picture, and that would be incredibly distracting. So I gave up on the idea. Then I wanted to use the save camera position to simply speed up the footage, but eventually, I managed to keep myself busy. At this point I remember that we can tinker with the oil fields, so it doesn't have to be a boring one. We can still do stuff. If you recall, I wasn't happy with how the rail tracks were around here, so that's the first thing I'll remove. We have 2 patches close by. I'm sure there is an absolute best way of maximizing the output, but I'll just go for 70% on these oil pumps, and then plug in the last remaining gaps if I think it's worth the expenditure. Since there are only 2 inward connections on the oil storage tanks, using merging pumps is a must. We have 5 jacks on this side, so 2 pumps should be enough. I really wanted to make these pipes look a bit more orderly, so I'll attempt to snap them together. I think the result will be worth it. Introducing this extra length into this particular pipe made it just barely too long. Loosening up some of the turns, however, will make everything fine. This last one is simply too far away to feasibly do the same with it. So I'll just allow it to do this wide turn, and leave it be. On to the other side. This one is a bit trickier. A sizable portion of it is located on this hillside, and the construction offices are too far away to do any groundwork, so we will have to make some weird placements to make it work. With all of that done, we need power next. We will never be able to cover everything with a single substation, a minimum of 3 are required. I am not overly concerned with making everything accessible by roads. We only need to connect to them to have them built. My plan is to use helicopters in this area for fire safety, so we won't have to bring workers all the way out here, just for that. The first section of the industrial main road is done. I'll designate the next one, and get back to work. Speaking of fire, let's place the fire station now. And we will need a helipad to make it work the way I want it to. I'll just have to place it close enough, so the fire station turns green, indicating that they are now connected. As I said, we only need roads until they are built, after that I will remove them. So I'm not too worried about making it look nice. Sometimes, I will have to replace some of the buildings by their mirror counterparts, so their road connections are accessible. Another road done paving. We have less than a month until first snowfall. I think we can manage to finish paving this section before that. I'll enable notifications on the 2 middle pieces, so we'll know when they are done. In theory, I could bring a single medium voltage wire over from the steel mill, and split it a couple times to power everything, but I'd be more comfortable with building a transformer and using a high voltage line instead. The power draw around here isn't going to be too big, so underground wires will do the trick. Of course, we need to connect all this to the rail network. I think I will go with a Y junction, instead of a T version, because for now, we will only need to move oil in one direction. Instead of having two level crossings so close to each other, I will move this piece to the other side, so we only go over the rails once. I just noticed that the two construction offices are done. Time to unpause the next batch. I will remove this small piece of road, so we don't start building this part just yet. When I'm ready, I can simply reconnect it. As expected, we worked through our coal reserves quite fast. I think I will add a couple more dumpers to the import line. These new snowplows are so much faster than the previous models we used. And it seems the track layers finished building this junction. They should be hard at work in front of the construction yard at this point. And with that, most of the roads around the bus station are done. I was tempted to finish the rest, but I don't want to force vehicles to use the dirt roads during winter. This street, however, is rarely used, and pedestrians have the footpaths to get around on, so it should be a safe upgrade. While I won't upgrade them right now, we can still prepare for spring, by designating a few side roads around the old industrial district. Here, I was trying real hard to somehow find a piece of land on this hillside that could accept the pump jack, but no luck this time. Maybe once the new construction yard is done, we can do something. In the previous episode, I mentioned that I might want to move the farm's power connection to the steel mill's transformer. I will do it right now, although our 2 construction buses will be tied up for quite a while, so we might have to buy a couple truckloads of food at the border. Speaking of power, I think I will split the steel mill's high voltage line, and route it over to the oil fields. I wish it wasn't winter, I can barely see anything from all this snow. Anyways, we only need a new high voltage switch here, and we can move power to our pump jacks. Once it's built, we can change the incoming connection from the power plant, but for now, I'll just build the line going to the oil. This will work just fine. I accidentally built this switch with a gravel road instead of a dirt one, and by the time I realized this, it was already close to done, so I just let it play out. To compensate, I will add a bit of gravel paving for the whole thing, so it blends together a bit better. I decided to not bother building this during winter. Deliveries take way too long with all this snow. So I disabled the ones that were sitting idle, and eventually, I will also pause the ones that were receiving a lot of traffic at this time. As it turns out, this steel mill's rail parking is 170 meters long, which is way more than what we need. So I will include the third platform, although I doubt we will take advantage of it. I will also place down the pre-station crossing. Not necessary right now, but at this point, I was desperate to keep busy. The lights were only placeholders, only to make sure I'll have enough space to include the proper ones when it's time. The mine is in its last phase of construction. At this point, we only need a lot of workers to make those work days go down as fast as possible. And we have 2 completely full buses right around the corner. Won't be enough to do everything, but it's something. Real shame we cannot use a crane, as there are no empty slots for construction machinery. Those would speed things up immensely. I think I mentioned that we will only finish building the mine in the episode. But the processing plant won't be too far from completion. 1,000 workdays left, not too long now. As I said, those buses are too busy with other projects, and this power connection is left in the air for a bit. And here we have a situation that so far only happened once in one of my test games. Trucks are starting to run out of fuel, even though we have a gas station right here in the border outpost. So the problem is with the fuel deliveries. As it turns out, the tanker truck was delivering bitumen, and a little bit was left in the back. Since we cannot mix liquids, it wasn't allowed to go pick up fuel at the border, resulting in a complete stop. Deleting that small amount of extra cargo will allow it to spring into action. To allow some of the traffic to resume, I only had to send one of the dry trucks back to the depot. Once we have fuel again, I can let it go. Look at all these trucks flocking to the gas station. Crisis averted. Well, not averted completely. That pileup resulted in some buses getting stuck too, it seems. We have a bit of a heating issue. Let's take a quick look at the heating overlay. Temperatures are bouncing back, but not completely. They are fluctuating quite a bit. The main problem, of course, is that the heat exchangers are overloaded. We will have to build a new one soon. But we are back to 24 degrees everywhere. So crisis is now really dealt with. This little problem dropped our overall health by a couple percentage points. Thankfully, the hospital doesn't seem to be busier than usual, so I think we will be fine. I was ready to call it an episode right here, but decided to wait until the snow melts. Well, that was the plan anyways. I like to remove trees that are a bit too close to my tracks. Less chance of dead branches landing on my rail network. At least that would be the real life reasoning. Next, I wanted to start working on the rail connections for the construction yard, but then I took a look at the elevation overlay, and decided to go on a smoothing spree instead. These power poles are still not built. Won't be long now. Thankfully, I didn't remove the old food imports from the distribution office, just for situations like this. The mine is so close to being built. Decided that these sports facilities are more trouble than they're worth. For the amount of citizens who can take advantage of them, their footprints are just not worth it. They take up too much space. I think I can use this land for something else. By the way, using a general bulldozer to demolish things. That was a bad idea. And the coal mine is finished. It can serve more than one of those processing plants, so we might have to do some rearrangements around here to take full advantage of it, but that's for later. I finally decided to just stop these for the time being. We can concentrate on other things for now. The last straw was this road crane slowly inching towards the cement silo. We can use it better than this right now. Anyways, about this piece of land behind the brick apartments. I wanted to see what kind of development we could build here, and I think you'll like what I ultimately go with. Having two of these tall towers here would look kind of neat, I think. They could be the biggest landmarks in town. And this is where I realized that using an indiscriminate demolishing tool can be a bad idea. I accidentally deleted parts of the underground cables here. Thankfully, this substation was a backup, so no harm done. I will of course mirror the second tower. I'm trying to make it as symmetrical as possible. Now the driveways. Of course, I want to make it with perfect 90-degree angles, so I'll be fiddling with it a bit. These convenient footpath connections in the back will allow citizens to reach the town center. And we can route them between these brick houses. Couldn't have made it better if I planned for it. Almost forgot to build the third heat exchanger. The ending of this episode turned out way more hectic than anticipated. And would you look at that? The farm has power again. Having these 3 zebra crossings so close to each other didn't sit well with me. Thankfully, it didn't take long to think of a solution. There we go. I think that looks way better. We only have to adjust the ground textures we placed before. And that should do it for this episode. Coal shouldn't take very much longer to start production. I might spend some time trying to squeeze in a second processing plant, which would do us some good long term. But that's for the future, one will satisfy our needs for the time being. I will have to stop importing coal altogether, and I will reverse the coal import line instead. Except I will not be selling it. I will simply move coal to the heating plant. That of course will require less trucks, so we can sell most of them from that line. I'm not sure if I should start building the iron side of the steel mill, or concentrate on finishing the construction yard instead. I think doing the latter will do us some good. Plus I will need to start thinking about overhauling the gravel industry, so it can deal with train deliveries too. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.